I'd like to preface this by saying that I woke up at 4 in the morning because I decided in my infinite wisdom to wake up while I was in the middle of a dream for what seems to be absolutely no reason. Furthermore, I decided that I would get straight into reading 1984 so that I wouldn't have any distractions. In my usual waking up routine, I opened up YouTube. I picked a short video which would serve to switch my brain into the on position. I can usually do these problems in my head. Recently, I've been trying to get into the habit of showing work again, on paper. This was supposed to take 5 minutes, it took 5 hours. Sunk cost fallacy, time to make a video about it. This is the simple looking problem I found on YouTube. This is what I did when he said to go ahead and pause and try it out. This is how long I went ahead and paused to try it out. When I finally gave up and started, watching the video to see how he explained it, he took a very different approach than mine. I didn't understand what he was doing. I understood what he was doing, but I didn't understand why he was doing it. And then this happened. Okay. Cool. Not sure why you're doing this, but I understand what you're doing. Who would ever make that connection? Oh well. What the fuck is Al-Kashi's law of cosines? That's obvious after you apply that conjecture I've never heard of. Yeah, that's what I was doing, except how the fuck did you cancel out X and Y? This guy goes into proper detail about what he's doing, and I'll admit I wasn't specifically going the route of coordinate planes, but I was doing about everything I could to avoid trigonometry, and I'll get back to that later, but this is the essential thing that I was trying to do, and then he just kind of skips a step. A pretty big step. This is probably correct. The fuck is B? Oh, yeah, right. This is the amount of time I spent pacing about a line of vesicular rocks. I balanced on them while talking to myself about how the education system is fucked, how the job market sucks, how cats are adorable and fuzzy little sociopaths, and how politics is a symptom of naturally emergent human societal behavior. Maybe I'm ready to try out that problem again, albeit studying the two methods I was presented for how people solved it, then applying it to my original method, which wasn't exactly the same as the one in the YouTube comments section below, but that was close enough, assuming I have the energy for it. Spoiler! I didn't. Oh, Khan Academy, you're too good for me. If only I realized this when I was still in high school, rather than loathing you for your color and white on black aesthetic choices, which I now see is pedagogically, psychologically, and photoreceptively sound. Sometimes I feel like the only reason I bought a display tablet was for mindless rote memorization in a way that doesn't feel like I'm wasting paper. Maybe I just miss having a whiteboard. This is the time it took me to learn the law of cosines, then apply it to solve the way as was done in the video. The work through which I solved it as done in the video. Another spoiler alert. I fucked up. That's supposed to be 21 minus 2 times the square root of 34. I'll get to that later. The fact that I had to correct the dude who explained how to cancel out X and Y was probably just to defend my hubris. But here's the thing. This is the amount of work that I went through in order to understand his comment. There were a lot of gaps in this too. And how exactly he got 21 plus or minus the square root of 441 minus 305 alone took me probably a half hour, which contributed, perhaps, to the fact that this is how long it took me to dissect that comment. This is the amount of time it took me to solve using the comment. Then I realized that I somehow fucked up my answer using the first method. It turns out that I said the cosine of 135 degrees equaled negative root 2, rather than negative 1 over root 2. I mean, like, if I really thought about it, I knew that already, but I do a lot of mathematic fuckery. In fact, a bunch of why it took me so long to understand his comment was simply because I kept fucking up in various ways. But that's beside the point. This is my messed up solution using the videos technique, and correct solution using the commenters technique. You'll notice that one is significantly more difficult and complicated than the other. I would like to emphasize that the one that I inherently thought to do from the get-go was of the breed of the far more complicated. Oh well. My general takeaway, by the way, I am definitely not solving this again with the original scheme. My takeaway, I just spent almost 3.5 hours straight working trying to solve, then learning to solve a simple problem from a video from a channel that posts things I usually do in my head in a matter of minutes. I spent about a half hour resetting my mind to cope with the fact that I'd spent over an hour failing at a math problem from a channel I'm used to giving easy problems that are slightly challenging to do in your head. I learned what the law of cosines is, and that some dude, Al-Kashi, I think, invented it. I learned to deploy a systematic approach to solving the problem through a similar technique to the one I had originally intended to employ, but lost my way at some point. I dissected YouTube comments for over an hour trying to understand how they worked out the problem, which steps they skipped, and how to fill in the blanks. I always disliked trigonometry, because I couldn't justify it. I was taught in school to approximate arbitrary values with a calculator, never what it was that the calculator was doing. After high school, I learned how complicated computing transcendental functions is, and why there are specially dedicated circuits in CPUs and GPUs which approximate floating point values of such functions. Human, if not merely algebraic, logic is an arbitrary abstraction which is inherently incompatible with algebraic numbers, the things I learned so easily to manipulate every which way. In order for me to progress in my mathematic career, I must further look into why it is that these systems are parallel to, but directly incompatible with, our systems of calculation. Incidentally, quantum mechanical waveforms may very well exist in such a realm that algebraic logic is purely incompatible, emergent from large degrees of complexity. Or I can just be lazy and learn linear algebra, which feeds directly into conventional quantum mechanics and even machine learning. There's lots of money in it, and that's what bitches, and that's what gets bitches these days. Points. Yes, I fucked up repeatedly recording this. No, I am not going to correct it. Yes, I fucked up repeatedly in my calculation of basically everything. That's kind of actually the real takeaway here. Math is a beautiful process. Humans are not really good at math. I mean, some are. Some are awesome at math. I'm not one of them. I'm the one that can understand this stuff just enough to eventually work my way through it with a lot of time and effort and dedication and research, crutched by people who actually know what they're doing on the internet. Furthermore, that's just kind of what I do with everything. I wanted to convey that because right now it is 10:45. I've spent way too much time on this thing, and so I have to justify it somehow, don't I? Toodles.